Ed Orgeron and LSU have decided middle of October, let's part ways at the end of the year.
This story is bananas.
Very weird.
And does the list of coaches to fill that slot start with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M? Joining us right here, who he wrote about this very subject on The Athletic. Joining us also from Fox Sports is our friend Bruce Feldman once again. How are you, Bruce?
I'm doing well, Rich. Good to be on with you. Sorry, I could have been in the studio tomorrow to meet Larry David.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a little bit more heads up next time. How about that? So let's get into this. Where did this come from with Ed Orgeron and LSU? We know obviously the losing, but is there something else behind the scenes that we're missing where this takes place?
No, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is he didn't win enough. It's the AD who is there now. Scott Woodward is a guy who loves to make flashy hires. Scott Woodward is not the AD who hired LSU. He took over right before the national title season in 2019. I think what really hurt Orgeron as much as anything was he made some bad coordinator hires. He made some really good ones to help him win the national title, and then the ones after that didn't work out. Bo Pelini as the defensive coordinator last year was a disastrous hire, and then he was on a hot seat, and he went with two younger first-time play callers who have done an okay job, but there's been some growing pains. And Orgeron did not have much margin for error. National title or not, a year ago, he did not have much margin for error, and I think that has cost them. And so, I think it's really as simple as that. He just did not win enough in the last 18 months after winning a national title.
Okay, so then now what? I mean, and why is he sticking around the rest of the season? They just figure that's better. If he agrees to stick around, then it's better than just putting an interim in there, or, I mean. Yeah,
I think, remember, he's getting $17 million to walk away. So this is a school, this was his dream school growing up. He obviously is a native of Louisiana. And
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I know. He sounds like he's from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, so, exactly right.
He ended up, feeling like, okay, I want to still coach my team and ride this out, and so we'll see where it goes from there. But I think at this point, this was the solution that they had worked out over the last week or so, that he would stay on to finish out the year. I'm not sure what an interim would have done for them. I mean, at one point, I remember having the conversation with him, and this is before they beat Florida last weekend, was like, hey, what happens if you go on a little roll? Do you think that gets you, do you think that gets you off the hot seat? And he was like, no, they want to go in a different direction. He knew what was going on, before obviously everything came out Sunday, whether they beat Florida, which they did. I mean, even if they beat Ole Miss, even if they somehow were to knock off Alabama, the leadership at LSU had already decided we want a new guy in there. And so that's the direction.
Okay. And so, I read your story. I don't want to cannibalize it. You do what you wish to share whatever you wish on The Athletic. I saw a photograph of Jimbo Fisher on Twitter, which I'll be honest, led me to also click on it. Like, really? Texas A&M's Jimbo Fisher? That's the guy that they're going to try and target?
Rich, keep in mind, the guy who hired Jimbo Fisher away from Florida State is Scott Woodward when he was the AD there. So he has a relationship. He was also the guy who got Chris Peterson to lead Boise to go to Washington when he was the AD at Washington. So he has a track record. I mean, even his women's basketball coach now, Kim Mulkey, won national titles at Baylor. He signed her. So I think, from what my reporting is, he's already had a conversation with Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher sounds like he's, not going to make this jump at this point. He has no buyout, though, at A&M. He could leave without penalty. It's just, he's already got 4 years in at Texas A&M trying to build a foundation there. I'm not sure, why he would make the move to LSU in that case. I was told by another source close to Scott Woodward that he was going to take a big swing and see if Dabo Swinney had any interest. Dabo Swinney only has a $3 million buyout, but he's in the ACC where there's no Alabama and there's no Kirby Smart in Georgia recruiting like they are. So when you're in Clemson, you're dominant, built to dominate there. Now they're having a down year, but still, I'd be surprised if he was tempted to leave. I understand Scott Woodward wants big name hires. I know the new president at LSU really likes James Franklin at Penn State. He coached in the SEC, did a terrific job at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt used to be awful. Then he got there and got him in the top 25 a couple seasons. Then he left, and Vanderbilt went back to being awful. I don't know if James Franklin would be tempted to leave Penn State for LSU. I don't know if he'd be tempted to leave Penn State for USC, but he's definitely got some interest. And then the name that we reported this weekend, Mel Tucker. He's at your rival school, Michigan State, done a really nice job there. A lot of key people at LSU are very enamored with him, I'm told. So would he make that move? Would he be a big enough, it's a little bit of a gamble because this is the first year in 3 years as a head coach that Mel Tucker's going to have a winning season. People are really impressed with him, but is that a big enough name for them? I don't know. We'll see how this plays out.
Well, I mean, Michigan State has sent a head coach to LSU before, right? I mean, that's happened. It kind of worked out.
Worked out to be a good hire for them.
I'm referring to Nick Saban. And so, yeah, I mean, I have no problem if Mel Tucker wants to take that job. I'll be very happy if that happens. I mean,
get him out of the state, right? You've got to pull a little you want him away from
no doubt. No doubt about that. So that's a fascinating story that will be playing out with USC also in the market. Which one's a better job? Which one would you take?
I live in Los Angeles. I like the weather out here.
Yeah.
You're asking the wrong guy. But there's no humidity here. I know there's humidity in Baton Rouge. Yes. The reason why I think if you're James Franklin, if you feel like you're open to leaving Penn State, there's no Nick Saban in Alabama in the Pac-12 South, right? I mean, and even if you get past that part of it, look what Kirby Smart has amassed talent-wise with all these 5 stars. He's in the same conference. He's not in the same division, but you're still going to have to go through that to win a conference title. You know what the state of the Pac-12 is right now.
Yep.
I mean, the Pac-12 South is mush at this point. And so I don't know. I mean, to me, that's the part where it's just like if you can convince the coaches, whoever you're trying to woo at if you're USC, whether it's Luke Fickell from Cincinnati or James Franklin, at Penn State, I think one of the big selling points is the head coach is going to get paid in a big way. Will they convince them that their support staff and their assistants will get paid where they don't feel like the cost of living is a dramatic difference from the college towns those coaches are in now, and how that plays out? I think that's the biggest selling point USC has to convince whoever they try to land.
Bruce Feldman, college football insider from The Athletic and Fox Sports. A few minutes left with him here on the Rich Eisen Show. Washington State's now suddenly got an opening, huh? That thing has been a fiasco for a couple of months now in terms of the situation with Nick Rolovich. The relationship had just withered away to nothing with he and his bosses. So now what's tricky there is basically it's not just Rolovich. Rolovich and 4 of his assistants, and this isn't like Alabama or some of these other places where you have like 20 analysts that you can plug in. They got to find other coaches who are, basically on the street who are available, who would jump in to finish the second half of the season. And be vaccinated, right? I mean, again, for those who may not know, Rolovich refused to get vaccinated and was given, an ultimatum to get the shot? And he refused, and they obliged him with the ability to go get be unvaccinated elsewhere, correct? That's what happened?
Yeah, in a nutshell. And then, now we'll see what they do in their coaching search, later on, because like I said, right now, I talked to the AD last night, and they just said, they had some contingency plans, but now to line up people, because it's not just Rolovich. Rolovich is a hands-on offensive coach. It's his offensive coordinator also was let go, and his offensive line coach. So, and he runs a run and shoot. It's not like you're going to find a bunch of coaches who are versed in that offense who are out there, so they're not, Mouse Davis is 89 years old. I don't know if Mouse Davis is a guy who they're going to call up and say, hey, do you feel like you're up to finishing the college football season for us? I mean, it's a really awkward and unique dynamic that they have with those players who've been through a lot there. They've had a couple of players, in their careers there pass away tragically. They've been through coaching change. Remember, Mike Leach was there, and he's only been gone for a year and a half. So it's just a lot of like uncertainty and tumultuous stuff that those players have dealt with, and now this is the latest turn on them.
Last one for you. The quarterback switch in Oklahoma, Caleb Williams. What's Spencer Rattler going to do? Does he have any choices? I mean, the kid obviously was 6 weeks ago, we were talking about, suck for Spencer in the NFL for the draft, and now he has been replaced, and it looks like Oklahoma has been born anew in their chance to win a championship. What's going on there?
It is a crazy plot twist, Rich. Like in the summer, he was out here for the Elite 11 camp as a counselor, and he was like Ari Gold doing NIL deals left and right. And then, there was a lot of hype around him. He struggled. And Caleb Williams, who has a lot of buzz, he was a big-time recruit that they landed out of the Washington, D.C. area. He runs better. He probably has an even stronger arm. He's, can make the Aaron Rodgers kind of crazy off-platform throws. He hit the ground running. I mean, he looked great against Texas. He looked really good since. He's given them a spark. And unless he really stumbles, I'd be surprised if Spencer Rattler decides to leave OU. I'm not sure that there's going to be enough, financial sense for him to try to go leave and become a draft pick. Because you're not talking about a guy who's 6'4", 220. They're not going to be wowed by him, physically. He runs okay, but he's not a great runner. I think that he's probably going to have to transfer someplace else. He jumps in the portal. I'm sure there'll be a ton of interest in him. And then if it comes to that. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what the next step is for Spencer Rattler, assuming Caleb Williams doesn't start to really struggle. If he keeps it up, this is Lincoln Riley's next, breakout quarterback. And honestly, looking at him physically just compared to Spencer, like the Spencer stuff, I was a little surprised that people were talking about his first pick in the draft guy, not because of Lincoln Riley's track record, but just, I don't know, there were a little bit of question marks. Our buddy DJ, Daniel Jeremiah, I think could probably fill in a lot of the gaps on that. Mm-hmm. But Caleb Williams has the wow factor physically in him. Like, wouldn't shock me if he was a first pick in the draft guy a couple of years from now, though.
Well, I mean, in that regard, about the difference physically about wow factor and not, just to finish up for a moment for me here, a lot of my friends and colleagues and fellow alums at Michigan were just ecstatic about the start of the Wolverines this year and where they are and how well positioned they are heading into this game, coming off a bye against Northwestern before the gauntlet of the states, Michigan, Penn, and Ohio, come their way. J.J. McCarthy, we're wondering why he keeps popping up in the game, because Cade McNamara has that moxie factor from the old days that I think Jim loves, and he made only one mistake against Nebraska. That's literally one of the only mistakes he's ever made since getting the starting role at Michigan. Like, what's the quarterback scenario there that you're hearing about?
I think he's trying to make sure he has another guy ready. I think obviously JJ has a lot of physical tools. I mean, he's bigger arm. I think there's a lot of intrigue with what he can do. I think you want to get him ready. Honestly, Rich, I also think you want to make sure he's engaged and not thinking, I don't want to sit here for a while and not think I have a chance to play. Mm-hmm. And I think this is, quarterbacks in 2021 where guys aren't going to be that patient. And so I think you need to make sure he's still engaged, because feels like he's the future of the program. Whether he's the future, if things don't go great against one of those opponents and they struggle, does he start the second half? I don't know, because as they've run the heck out of the football, obviously. And if, they've been able to be more physical than a lot of teams they played to this point, will that work against Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State? We'll see. I think that this at least, to me, it's like just, hey, we got to get the other guy ready just in case. And I think that's what they've tried to be very judicious in his reps and in his game time.
All right, as we matriculate our way to November, look for my call. Bruce, we'll revisit and see how the top 10 gets reconfigured between now and our next chat. Thanks for the call.
Sounds good. Always a pleasure, Rich. Thanks
right back at you. At Bruce Feldman, CFB. I follow him on Twitter. You should as well, from The Athletic and Fox Sports. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.